In this video, we're being asked to solve the problem given a equals 8, b equals x, and c equals 16 for the triangle ABC. What is x? Okay, so I just drew a very small little diagram here of our triangle ABC. One thing to note is our triangle is a right angle triangle. What this means is we're trying to find x is equal to b is one of our sides. This means that we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find our unknown, because essentially we're finding an unknown side, right? B is our x is our unknown. Okay, so what is the Pythagorean theorem? It states that two sides, a squared plus b squared, this is the side lengths, are going to equal c squared. Okay, now these letters, okay, A and B, have to be the sides of the right angle triangle that are not the hypotenuse, okay? So C is our hypotenuse. That's the line that is directly across from the right angle, okay? So in this case, C is our hypotenuse. So C squared is equal to the squares of the two other sides added together, okay? So what do we know? We know what A is. We know what C is. And essentially what we're trying to find out is what B is. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to substitute these values that we were given into Pythagorean theorem, and this will allow us to solve for x, which is what we were asked to do, right? Okay, so let's go ahead. If a is equal to 8, that gives us 8 squared plus b equals x, so it's going to be x, and that's going to be squared, and that's going to equal c, which is 16, and that is also going to be squared. Okay, so now I need to go ahead and simplify this a bit further, okay? So that gives us 8 squared is 64, and we're going to add this term here, which is just x squared, and that's going to be equal to 16 squared, which is equal to 256. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to isolate for x, okay? So in order to do that, we need to do the opposite actions to get rid of the terms we don't want. Okay, so that sounds a little confusing. All I mean is, in this case, on the left-hand side, we have a 64, which has been added to our x squared. I want to move this 64. Okay, I want to move it from the left-hand side of the equal sign to the right-hand side. So to do that, I need to do the opposite thing. So right now, it's positive 64 added to something. So what I want is I want to subtract 64. Or the other way I can say it is I can add a negative 64. Okay? So I can add a negative 64. Now, whatever I do to one side of my equation, I need to do to the other side too. So I need to add a negative 64. Okay, now the reason why I want the opposite action is because I want these terms to cancel, right? So if they don't cancel, I did it wrong. Okay, you need to stop and go back then. All right, let's try simplifying our left-hand side now. So we have negative 64 plus 64, that's 0. They cancel, perfect. And we're just going to be left here with this x squared term. Now, that's going to equal 256 plus bracket negative 64. Now, this is just the same thing as writing 256 minus 64, okay? Because to drop these brackets, we just multiply these signs together, right? So we have the positive times the negative, which is a negative. So plus bracket negative 64 is the same thing as minus 64, which we knew, right? We just talked about that. Okay, so we can go ahead and simplify further. 256 minus 64 equals 192. Now, we're not quite done yet, right? We were looking for x, not x squared. So in order to get x, we need to take the square root, right? Once again, we need to do that to both sides of our equation, right? If we don't, we've changed the question we're dealing with, right? We solved a different problem. That's not what we want to do, okay? So the square root of x squared is simply x, and that's going to be equal to the square root of 192, which is 13.86. Now, one thing to note, when we take the square root, like in this case, we're actually getting two possible answers, okay? This could have been negative 13.86, or this could have been positive 13.86. Now, you notice I didn't write that down. I didn't write plus or minus. I just wrote positive 13.86. That's because we're solving for the length of a side, okay? This is a quantity we're looking for. We're not looking for direction or positivity or negativity of it, okay? All we're trying to do in this case is solve for the length, the quantity, the size of it, okay? How much space that side takes up. That's why when we're solving a problem like this problem, and we take the square root of both sides, we're only interested in the positive answer, okay? So all that means is, once again, our answer is x equals 13.86, and that's what we were asked to find. If you would like to learn how to quickly study for your GED exam online and get a new resume, then visit testprepskills.com.